Vestments is a weird one because like by the time the intro is like reaching its climax, there's so many layers going on, and it's because it's so like hyperchromatic. It's like I'm sure there's just if you like analyzed all the notes that are happening at once, you'd be like, what the hell were these guys thinking? This is crazy.
There's probably more going on that I'm not.
Oh, there's all kinds. So you got the Ben's tappy part that's just kind of an ostinato underneath it all. Yeah, and then there's the main melody comes in, which I'm harmonizing Ben in some kind of like parallel thirds, and I think the thirds that I'm paralleling they shift because I'm using slightly different melodic shapes than he is.
Right.
And then so on top of that, then Ben puts another couple of layers that are kind of these like polyrhythmic things. Like you've got kind of like a 7/70 feeling thing, and then at the very end there's just like these huge chords that are just like brr, brr, and it's
just blaring.
Yeah.
And there's that octave. Well, it has an octave effect, and I'm also playing octaves. And there's a line that's moving down almost entirely in neutral seconds. So this is actually an interesting topic, because I certainly have not analyzed how all those notes and the different layers line up with each other. And I almost think sometimes it's a little bit of a moot point. There's a band called Thinking Plague that I'm a huge fan of, sometimes considered the avant rock or RAO genre. But one thing they introduced me to that I was not that familiar with before was polytonality. It's in 12, but they will just have, they usually have a woodwind part and a guitar and keyboard. So they'll have these two different melodies that are in completely different keys.
Yeah.
Each doing their own thing. Yeah. And at first it's very like shocking, but once you sort of learn to hear each one separately, it's more like you hear them independently and you aren't necessarily hearing the intervals formed by the combination at each moment.
Right,
You're hearing them as two separate streams. This is something Aaron Wolf has talked about with me a lot.
Yeah.
Perceiving things as different streams.
Time streams.
Yeah.
It's very important, yeah.
So if you're hearing something that way, then, the actual technical relationships between the notes at any point in time may not actually be the main thing going on or the way you actually perceive it. Yeah. So I think that's probably the case on that part of Vestments.
I don't know if you know this, I think you do, but the composer Ligety also apparently made positive remarks about your album. Wikipedia says Ligety was interested in your music and he mentioned your track Fauna Grotesque in a sketch, which is amazing. Love that particular song.
Thank you. I had a friend, her name is Mari Takano. She's a composer, and she was studying with Ligety in Hamburg, I think, in Germany. And in his class, she gave Ligety my first record, Fauna Grotesque, and once Ligety listened to it, and he get really excited. Then he asked my friend to contact me to ask if he can buy my organ, and he said, "How much is the organ?" That was his. He was really excited. So I replied, "Oh, sorry, I can't sell it to you because this is the only one, and I can't make another one, and I can't send it to Germany, and electricity voltage is different, blah, blah, blah." And he had to give up. But maybe if I gave him or sold him, he might have composed very, very interesting music. That's my regret. But I don't regret because I couldn't do Syzygys if I sold it. So that is a funny story.
Wow, that is an amazing story. I guess you definitely and if you had sold the organ to him, maybe you would also have regretted that too. So it's like either way you go, there's not as much organ to go around as we would all like.
Yeah, but I wonder how much he was about to pay me. That I want.
This is Room Talks. Show me your room.
My room? Sure. Well, I've been working on music today. Here's the quick tour. I have a lot of compressors, so I have a couple of overstayer compressors. But so like in the last couple of years, I've gotten really into analog gear, and I'm kind of all about recording these days. And I've definitely done, performances by myself on microtonal guitar. But a lot of the times it'll be something that I've rehearsed, like at, Microtonal Adventures Festival. That was I just wrote that piece. I have done some jamming, but it's been in a more like free improv kind of situation where like any note is fine to play. So that's been kind of a different thing. My friend, Alex Wand, he plays, he's actually in the Parch ensemble, and he plays, adjust intonation guitar as well. And we did a couple of concerts together, and a couple of them were what are called sleep concerts. So yeah, it's for people who are actually asleep or can be asleep. So there was this concert that we did in downtown LA where they basically just had it wasn't beds, but it was like all of this space for people to just like lie down and basically fall asleep. And the concert started at midnight or something.
Wow.
And went till 6 in the morning. And I think we played at probably like 4 or 5 in the morning. And we just had, our microtonal guitars, and we played mostly just like JI intervals with EBOs. So it's this very like textural, smooth sounding thing. And we kind of just jammed it out. And that went okay. But it's so slow and, methodical, like, when things are moving at that pace, it's a little bit easier to improvise, I think, and just sort of have two notes, just sort of be those two notes in a space, and it's fine. And then everybody's asleep, so if you make a mistake, it's not a big deal. So.
Does the glass harmonica consist of simply many wine glasses, or is it a different kind of instrument? Because I've seen those instruments that are like a spinning bowl that's a little bit wet, and you just put your finger on it. Like, there was that viral video with, like, some Mozart piece where somebody was using that. Is it like one of those where it's turning, or is it just a lot of wine glasses on a table?
It's a lot of wine glasses. So they all came from IKEA. And my dream was that, there's an IKEA in every country, that percussionists I just send them the type of glass and they go out and, make their own to my specifications, which has not happened because percussionists just look at that and they think, oh, what a hassle. But it's, so mine is actually 60 separate wine glasses that you'd use at a dinner table, so stock standard wine glasses, and they're stuck down to a Perspex board. It's actually 3 separate instruments that make up the scale, so there's 29 notes in each octave, which is basically 30 notes if you include the octave. And there's 2 octaves, so that's 60 notes, and I just divide that into thirds. So each percussionist gets a third of the scale, and they have their separate instrument that's got 1 row of 10 glasses and a second row of 10 glasses. So that's in front of each percussionist.
Yeah. So are these notes, they're a subset of Harry Parch's Genesis scale then?
Yeah, so it's not the full 43 notes. So with the 29-note scale, it's made from the first 11 harmonics in the harmonic series. So it's basically all the intervals you can make with the first 11 harmonics in the harmonic series, which gives you 29 notes. So the 43-note scale, as you probably know, has some big gaps at the beginning and the end of the scale. It's a symmetrical scale. So he basically plugs those gaps with the extra notes. So in my wine glass instrument, I'm not plugging those gaps. I'm just using just the intervals made from the first 11 harmonics.
Oh, wow. And so does that then only come out to 29 notes if you don't plug the gaps? Oh, I didn't know that. I guess I thought there were way less gaps or something.
No, there's a few gaps here and there that get plugged. So, yeah, he just does that, picks notes which are within the interval that needs plugging, and then it's really just whichever ones he wanted that sounded, good.
I started the history of microtonal guitars in London in 1829 with an harmonic guitar with hundreds of holes on the fretboards. But then the second microtonal guitar is in Paris, this guitar, but the fret wires, the metallic fret wires, are installed in very large, maybe, 3 or 4 centimeter long wooden blocks.
So they're a lot bigger and clunkier.
Yeah, very bigger. So you can just move them maybe 5 or 6 millimeters to the left or right.
Oh, yeah.
So it is, just to fix the semitones. It's like true temperament guitars, but of course, a much better solution because true temperament guitars are fixed.
Right.
So if your strings get older, you are in trouble. But here, Lacote's solution is awesome. Anyway, but also it was very hard to move the frets because the frets are squeezed into the slots through this wine cork. There is the layer of wine cork underneath. So it was very hard to move the frets. I couldn't move them. So they were, but of course it's 150, maybe 67 years later, I touched the guitar. But anyway, so my main inspiration was that Lacote guitar and also Walter Vogt's guitar in 1985. But now I understand that Vogt has his inspiration from Lacote, of course, in the first hand, and also Daniel Friedrich, 1976. Have you watched Guitar Salon International's videos with John Schneider?
I've seen like a few videos with John Schneider. I've seen that John Schneider uses the adjustable frets and that he's, always at Microfest and does Harry Part stuff. And
yeah, but the great thing is this Guitar Salon International YouTube channel is, I think, maybe the most popular classical guitar channel now in the world. And for 5 or 6 episodes, they invited John Schneider and Mark Girdich. And John played 1976 made Daniel Friedrich adjustable microtonal guitar. He called this guitar mean tone guitar.
Ah.
And yes, and the funny thing is, it's very surprising, but I told John Schneider that this guitar exists. So I was shocked because, my main inspiration for my guitar was the contemporary guitar book of Schneider, the first edition that's been printed in 1984.
Oh, yes.
So my theory teacher, master theory teacher, Michael Ellison, gave me that book. And I went nuts and, I read the book and I memorized, I read it several times. So, and in that book, you have a brief history of microtonal guitars. And in the second edition, which is now a great microtonal music book also, he didn't include Friedrich. And then someone sent me Friedrich's design, and I wrote it to John. John, I'm sure you know this guitar, but you didn't include this in your book. And he says, oh no, I didn't. And in a few months, he found the guitar, and he played, and he recorded. So it's amazing. So the podcast followers can watch these videos in Guitar Salon International. John Schneider playing some pieces, and Mark Girdich plays some Renaissance tunes.
and a lot of the intervals remind me of minor thirds, and then there's some like melodic neutral seconds. You get to this big chord, and then I think you sort of start experimenting more, which is really interesting pattern to take, because I think in a lot of improvisations that people do in xenharmonics, they tend to have like a really, really strong pitch center. It's almost like the improvisationalist is like really trying hard to convince you that yes, you can use a mode for pitch center. So you should listen to this tonic note. But this is like refreshingly like kind of all over the place. So how were you thinking about texture when you did this? Did you improvise the little xylophone line and then sort of add in the other chords later? And like how polysystemic is this on a scale of 1 to 10? It sounds deeply xenharmonic, but it's so hard to get my head around what's happening.
Yeah, this one is maybe 5 or 6 years old. I just sort of picked it, and so I can't remember the files on another computer. So, I'd love to be able to tell you which tunings were in this one, but I can't. So it's just showing my attitude about it as well. But I think with this one, I probably improvised the xylophone part and then just doubled that. Some of us, I remove notes, like I'll double it and triple it, and then I'm like, well, this instrument doesn't have to play the whole time. This sound doesn't have to be present the whole time, and just remove, or sort of like I'll remove certain octaves. So this is just going to be a low end edition, and this we'll just hear the high notes with this particular instrument sometimes. So I think I made it like that, 2 or 3 tunings. But yeah, it's not, like you were talking about the approach to improv. It's just, I have no kind of set approach. So sometimes I'll just sit down and have no idea what I'm going to do. Depends on the instrument I'm using and my mood and everything else. And other times, I'm just feeling like a drone and I want to play some nice tonal tertian chords or do complete noise because I like to make noise as well. So
everybody here is at different skill levels of vocal skill. Obviously, was able to pull off a decent performance of that.
Yeah, with like.
So doesn't that disprove your point? I mean,
I didn't say that. I think we performed something, but I'm not sure if what we performed and the sound that we heard at the end was exactly what you wanted. With the effect that you wanted to get with that scale that you were talking about. It had a lot of musical moments that were great, but I'm saying, if you wanted to just like maybe grade the performance of what you wanted to, from 0 to 10, what would you give?
I grade that, but I will say something better. I mean, like,
just give us
I'm not going to give you a grading. But what you did do, like you said, you don't know if you tuned it the way. No, you were all tuning it the right way.
Okay.
Because you heard the scale in the audio examples, and you heard the logic behind the step sizes that maybe you can't exactly reproduce. Mm-hmm. And maybe the audience can't even hear that there are 6 small steps and 1 large step in the scale. Yeah. But people can sing chords in tune if they've got some sort of ear. That makes my pieces easier to do, right? Because it's just chords. It's just chords, and you tune them. And so you use the scale to get approximately there. You hear the example, you sing the scale, you tune the chords. The result. If my piece was in 12 equal, we would be no worse at that, I think, with these group of students.
I think my point is,
I agree. It takes more work to do what we're doing. Like, it takes an extra level of... And so, if we're neglecting the other aspects of music, rhythm, what else? Help me out here. Like things we're focusing all on intonation, and then my tuning is right.
And the expression and the musicality can be difficult if you are bogged down in technical shenanigans.
By the time I started composing, I did like 5 songs in a month and a half. I mean, I literally composed the 5 songs just like 2 days each. And then I've been messing with them, right?
Yeah.
So that's unheard of for me. I usually take forever to write stuff, and then even way more forever to sing it, write the lyrics, and then mix it. So like every 4 years I would have an album. Like I literally just like spit this out, 5 songs out, and they're almost done, and it's only been like a month and a half. So I don't know, I'm excited. I feel like myself again.
That is really fast, yeah.
It is fast, yeah. It's good. We'll get to hear more of your music again. So.
And you know how I said it was going to be a bit chip music, like chip tunes, and I was going to call it microchip. Mm-hmm. Well, guess what it is? Not.
It's not actually microchip?
It's not that at all. It's totally different. Because I can't control what comes out of me.
Right, so you start off with all the intentions.
Apparently, I can't control what style of music I'm writing. So it's totally disco.
Yeah, I always get those ideas as well. Oh, wouldn't it be cool to have an album of all of this, all in one tuning? Yeah, I'm never going to write an album all in one tuning. It's just totally impossible.
I really wanted to do that Boland Pure Scale album before Heinz Boland died. Yeah, that's still never going to happen. But what came out of me was Donna Summer. Like total disco. It's hilarious. I think you'll like it. It's happy.
Hey everyone, it's Steven here. As some of you might know, I host the podcast about microtonality, Now and Zen, that I started with Syzygys. That's right. If you haven't subscribed to it on YouTube, you can do that right now. Plug. Syzygys and I started it in November 2018, and he set up the whole thing really nicely in a way that I would probably never be ambitious enough to do. It was just us on the first 2 episodes, and then adding in guests for most episodes later. Our first guest was Elaine Walker. Usually we talk about microtonality and the guest's latest projects. Sometimes we talk about theory, and sometimes we get into the more practical end. There's always a lot to talk about because it's a really interesting subject. Later, in August 2019, Syzygys left the show, and then Jacob Barton co-hosted for a brief period in October 2019. So from September 2019 until now, July 2020, it's been just me doing the work of, well, what usually goes to 2 people, on top of the other 2 jobs that I have right now, neither of which involve microtonality, on top of the bonus episodes. So it's a lot. This would be much more sustainable if Now and Zen's Patreon account was growing, but right now it's leveling off. We've hovered around 25 for a few months now. Obviously, COVID-19 has been hard on everybody, and that's probably a big part of it. You see, I'd quit my church job just to put more time into Now and Zen, with the hope that there would be a reasonable amount of income. So I've also tried to be as open and as forward-thinking as possible, too. I try to tell you what's on my mind, and I try to incentivize by providing incentives that, as far as I can tell, I'm the only one providing. That's why for every 10 patrons past 30, I'm arranging a new Easily Blackwood etude on the keyboard and playing it, because I feel like that's something unique that I can do that would really be worth the effort. I thought more people would want to see that happen. You can see the 15-note etude on my YouTube channel if you want to get an idea for how I would do this. What I'm saying is the non-podcast microtonal projects that I'm working on, theory videos, composition, multi-instrumental covers, performance, recording for others, promotion, all of these take up so much of my time already, and none of them have to do with my employment. Meaning that Now and Zen work drops further and further down on the list if there's no Patreon growth. So, I'm going to be clear, concise, and state a goal with a transparent deadline, because I believe in clear communication. I need to have 60 patrons for Now and Zen by December 1st, 2020. I hate how saying this feels. You know, everybody hates a Patreon video. It feels like ransom. But it also feels important to say because, really, I don't have to do this. I can spend my time doing other things, and there's a very long list of those things that I doubt I'll run out of in my lifetime. So again, 60 patrons by December 1st, 2020, or I will no longer be on Now and Zen. I was toying with other numbers earlier. Initially, my first goal was 150. That's about the number I would need to replace some of the income I lost from quitting the church job. I've adjusted it to 60 because that seems a lot more reasonable to aim for. 60 would give me just enough money to barely be paid a minimum wage for the work I put into 2 extremely short, easy-to-edit episodes per month. And that's not even counting the bonus episode. Lots of episodes are much more ambitious than that, like the Kyle Gann episode where I included a bunch of music theory examples with Hyperchromatica, or the 22 EDO episode where we got a bunch of music from 22 Equalin mixed with other conversations and commentaries. Okay, so that's the goal, 60 patrons by December 1st, 2020. The link to Now and Zen's Patreon is in the description. There are 2 tiers. The $5 xenharmonic patron tier gives you access to bonus episodes, and the $15 xenharmonic god tier gives you access to polls, potential AMAs, extra material I'm working on, early access to episodes, and of course, your name listed in the credits. Speaking of my patrons, they're great! I'm going to start trying to mention them at the ends of YouTube videos in addition to on my Now and Zen channel. Thank you all for supporting the cause of microtonal music, which is always important, but especially important in an age where we have the technology to explore alternative harmonies, and where we have enough exposure to different kinds of music that we can get a better perspective on most music in general. Thanks to my xenharmonic patrons and our xenharmonic gods, Matthew Sheeran, Kit Duguay, Hector McGuffin, Christopher Bailey, Leland O. Weigel, Amy Coleman, Joe Weigel, Tina Harmon Carteaux, and the Brass Whisperer. I appreciate you all watching. See you next time.